Okay, guys, let's talk about membranes and the phospholipid bilayer as well as cholesterol really quick. So, the phospholipid bilayer, do you need to know exactly all of the detail of the formula that you have in the purple? Not really. What you need to know is there is a hydrophilic head, so hydro water, philic loves, so loves water, and there are two tails and those are fatty acids. That's a fatty acid at the end of the day. It's just not a triglyceride. And those two tails are hydrophobic. Hydro, water, phobic, like in phobia, hate. So hate water. That hates water, that part. So you need to know that, and then you need to know that all of those are formed, but phospholipid bilayer because there is another part on the opposite side that oppose each other, right? And why is it like that? Well, turns out the cytoplasm inside of a cell and everywhere, really, it's really full of water. So the hydrophobic tails face each other. It's like that. You have a hydrophobic part here that stays away from water because the hydrophilic heads create that barrier. And that's why it's such a good barrier because for anything to go through, you need to be hydrophilic, hydrophobic, and then hydrophilic again. So you need to get to like you need to change state while you go through. It is really hard. So the only thing really capable of doing that, it needs to be extremely small. So think of water. Water is H2O. It's a really small molecules with three atoms. Each of those phospholipid has a head with a phosphate group, three carbons in below, glycerol, and then more carbons on top. It's like, I don't know, 30 atoms. And each of the tails is another 50 atoms with a long chain of carbons and hydrogen everywhere beside here when you have unsaturated because there's a double bond between carbon creating the kink here. Remember your fatty acid? So that just one of those is maybe 200 atoms, whereas that's three. So that molecules of three atoms can go through, and it's not charged. So it's really able to go through it. Remember, you need to be really small and non-charged to go through the membrane. So this is what you need to remember: hydrophilic head, hydrophobic tails, and how they stack with each other, so making that double layer phospholipid bilayer. So that's for the phospholipid bilayer. Now the cholesterol that's found in the membrane, you've seen that in the diagram. Cholesterol helps with a fluid mosaic because remember, that membrane is not stuck in space, it constantly moves. And that's allowed because in the membrane you will have a lot of different, so that's going to be a double membrane here. You will have proteins that are embedded in the membrane. You will have tunnels that are donut shaped through the membrane that allow things to go through. That's also a protein. And you will have those cholesterol little molecules. Those cholesterol just create shape, right? Create space in between phospholipid bilayer, which helps the whole thing to move. You want to think of a membrane as a lot of little moving parts. The more cholesterol, the more protein, the more moving parts. Now, there are two types of cholesterol, HDL and LDL. Turns out HDL is mostly in the membrane, and LDL, and both of them comes from the liver. And LDL leaves the membrane, leaves the liver, and goes into your arteries. So why is that bad? Well, your arteries. Let me check. Sorry for that. So your arteries are that vessel, right? And there's a lot of flow of blood going through, right? And a lot of things can go through. Now, LDL tends to accumulate into those arteries and form little clogs here and there to the point when you have too much bad cholesterol, that flow of blood is restricted and it can be extremely bad to the point where you will see arteries with only a tiny opening. Now, instead of having that much flow, you have only that much. If a clot comes by, the flow stops. If it's next to your heart stops. If it's next to your brain doesn't have oxygen coming in and you die. So stroke or an aneurysm is really, stroke is the heart, aneurysm is the brain, and that's due to the accumulation of LDL. Thankfully, HDL, the good cholesterol, carries that LDL back to the liver. Cannot do it all. Only 1/3 to 2/3 of LDL can be carried by the HDL back to the heart, to the liver. So that's why it's so important to pay attention to good and bad cholesterol and not get too much of that bad cholesterol in your body. That's it for the membrane cholesterol. I'll see you next time.